Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 27th of August of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. First we're going to start with the Battle of Robotyne, the Bradley Square. The Ukrainians, due to significant losses during the previous days while we were trying to assault and storm Robotyne, took a decision to change their tactics, to change their plan, or that was the plan from the beginning, and they have changed their direction of the main roads of attack. At least they currently they have two active roads and one secure road, or the road that they need to secure the flanks. First of all, the Ukrainians continue their offensive operation. They're storming and clearing the way, the passage in direction of Verbova. Today, the Ukrainians, to be more precise, the 42nd Air Mobile Brigade published a series of videos how the Ukrainians were storming, were trying to clear the trenches, the fortifications of the Russian forces on their way from Novodanilovka in direction of Verbova, the main road. And the Ukrainians currently are super concentrated in this direction, and based on the geolocated videos we can make a conclusion that the Ukrainians took a decision not to clear the fields on the north of Verbova, not to demine the fields, and probably the Ukrainians made such a decision because of lack of equipment and, the most important, lack of time and the manpower. And the only solution they have is to move along the main road that goes from Novodanilovka in direction of Verbova. And this is not the first video that we got from this area during the previous days. For example, just yesterday we discussed how the Ukrainians were bombing and attacking the edge positions in Verbova. So basically we understand the configuration of this attack and the purpose of this attack from the Ukrainian side. Another important direction that Ukrainians took a decision to use in the same way, in the same time with attack in Robotyne and Verbova, is the movements among the fields to the south, in the south direction, to be more precise, in direction of southeastern part of Novopokrovka. The Ukrainians, the second or the first time in a row, published the geolocated videos how they're trying to bomb and attack the Russian forces along this way, along this passage, along this move. For example, on this video we see how the same 46th Air Mobile Brigade published another series of videos how they were attacking and bombing the Russian armored vehicles, trenches, fortifications on this way. And we understand the main purpose of the Ukrainians. So they need to wedge deeper. They need to split the Russian defense belt in two parts. And because of this deep wedging, there are a lot of dangerous deep wedging. There are a lot of problems. The Ukrainians can face a lot of problems. And the most important problems is that the Russians are able to counterattack. The deeper the Ukrainians wedging in this area, the higher chances the Russians have to create a cauldron. Because even now, if we take a look at the configuration of the combat line, we see that the Ukrainians are pretty deep in this area. And there are very high chances that the Russians can counterattack on the flanks in the vicinity of, in direction of Novodanilovka from Kopony, and another wave of attack from Novopokrovka in direction of Novodanilovka. And the Ukrainian forces that located in the fields will be encircled and will get in cauldron. And they will not have even a chances to counterattack, because for these purposes you need at least time, and the distance is too big. So anyway, the Ukrainians attack in direction of Verbova along the main road. They're trying to attack with 2-3 soldiers groups to the south. And if you remember, yesterday we just discussed the video from the Russian forces, from the Ukrainians as well, how the Russians were stepping back from their positions under the strike and attacks of the same 46th Air Mobile Brigade in the same direction. So we understand the purposes and we understand the reasons. And now the Ukrainians have a real question: how can they continue their offensive operation in direction of the southern part of Novopokrovka, in the southeastern part, and not to get in Cauldron? And for these purposes, the main settlement, the main area that can solve this goal is the battle for Robotyne. Basically, the Ukrainians, maybe at the beginning of the special this counter-offensive operation, Robotyne was as the main foothold for the further offensive operation, but after the Ukrainians were defeated in the settlement, they have changed the status and of the settlement, and currently this is just the flank of Ukrainian main attacks in direction of Novopokrovka and Verbova. The Ukrainians want to secure, and they're keeping forces there. They're not storming the southern part, they're not storming the southwestern part, because they understand that these might be useless operations. The most important thing that they need to complete and to be 100% sure is to secure the western flank. This is the most important one, because today we got a lot of updates how the Russians were bombing and attacking. We have a lot of updates about the Ukrainian attempt to attack in the southern part, but the Ukrainians are not using their whole potential in these operations one more time, because they need just to secure. And the main attack, the main direction of Russia-Ukraine attack is between these two settlements, Robotyne and Verbova, in direction of the eastern part of Novopokrovka. So this is the main direction of Ukraine attack. But to complete this attack successfully, they need to secure the western flank and they need to secure the eastern flank. And if the Ukrainians are able to enter the southeastern part of Novopokrovka, let's say that if they're able to capture these fields, the entire front line of the Russians will be collapsed, and the Russian forces in Novopokrovka and Robotyne will be forced to step back in direction of Ilychenkova and probably in direction of Kopony. This is the main goal, and this is the main purpose of the Ukrainian forces in this bridgehead. But one more time, as we discussed, there are very high chances that the Russians will launch a counter-offensive operation as soon as they realize that the Ukrainians managed to dig in very deep. And who knows, maybe this is the Russian tactics to allow the Ukrainians to dig in as deep as possible, to wedge as deep as possible. Furthermore, the Ukrainian sources published today the usage of JDAM rocket, JDAM bomb in the central part of Novopokrovka. As a result of reconnaissance operation, the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian positions, and as a result of bombing, as you can see, there was a very heavy explosion, probably with the very heavy losses from the Russian side. The Russians reported, the Ministry of Defense to be more precise, as a result of clashes in Zaporozhye area, the Russians managed to repel at least 5 attacks of the 116th, 82nd, 846 brigades of Ukrainian forces and destroy up to 200 soldiers. As you can see, the clashes are very heavy. And one more time, the Ukrainians are very close to Novopokrovka from the south. So the Russians, it's already a time to start counterattacking. It's the best time to do this. Maybe 1-2 days to wait a little bit more, maybe even to allow the Ukrainians to enter the settlement and to force them to involve more forces, and after that to counterattack and to close the hatch of the Cauldron. This is my understanding and this is my projection regarding the Russian operation in defense operation on the Robotyne or Bradley Square bridgehead. Furthermore, the Russians reported that as a result of air defense work, they managed to shot down at least 2 Ukrainian Su-25 in the vicinity of Mala, Takmachka and Orekhov. And during the previous days of the battle, the final phase of the battle for Robotyne, probably those were another 4 or 6 aircraft in a row that were destroyed on this bridgehead. Now we're moving further to the Gulyai-Polye bridgehead. The Russians published a video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on the southern part. Basically, we're using this video just to geolocate and to confirm the combat line and to show that the areas that we use on the military summary maps shows the normal correct information regarding the combat line, at least on the south of Gulyai-Polye. No clashes, no changes on the ground. When talking about Vremivka tactical bridgehead, as we discussed, the Ukrainians currently don't have forces, don't have power to continue their offensive operation. Currently, they have forces just for one attack, for one battle, and this is the battle for Robotyne. They continue just attack and bomb the Russian positions, the concentration of their forces, their ammo depots. They try to discover positions with the drones, and after that, they're attacking the Russians. So nothing special, the same thing as the Russians do with the settlements like Velika Novoselovka, Neskuchne. Just that we can call this situation as artillery and drone duels on this bridgehead. Nothing special, nothing more. Now we're moving to Donetsk area. Today we got at least 2 geolocated videos. Probably the most interesting is that the Russians continue pressure in direction of Krasnogorovka, and today as a result of strike, the Ukrainians lost another ammo depot along the railways that goes from Krasnogorovka and Donetsk. This is the main Ukrainian fortification, main stronghold that Ukrainians use to stop or to slow down any attempt from the Russian side to enter the southern part. Anyway, we see that the Russians increased the pressure. They're attacking the settlement almost every single day. We're getting more and more video geolocated confirmations about the Russian attempts to attack, and that means, and also we see that there is a complete and total absence from the Ukrainian side of any counter-artillery duels. We see just the Russian pressure. Yes, there were some attacks against the Russian positions in Marinka, but this is not enough to slow down and to stop the Russian attacks in direction of Krasnogorovka. Now we are moving to Avdiivka direction. We got today at least 2 geolocated videos. The first one was how the Russians were bombing and attacking the southwestern block of Avdiivka. This is just geolocated video that we could discuss, but the most important thing that we need to note from the video is that the buildings in this area is completely fixed, completely correct, without any damage. So that means that there are still a lot of job, and probably the Russians are not going to attack this settlement, at least from this direction, because most of the buildings the Ukrainians are using for their strongholds. And another video got from the northern part. The Ukrainians made a small rotation from Novokalinovo, or probably sent some reconnaissance team in this direction. The Russians controlled this area for 100%, and as a result, as FPV strike, another Ukrainian reconnaissance team was destroyed. We will not watch the video till the end because of losses and casualties among the Ukrainian soldiers. Very violent video. Now we're moving to Bakhmut-Artyomovsk front line. The clashes in the vicinity of Kardymov-Klishchiivka continues. The Ukrainians published today the video how the assault brigade Lut was storming and clearing the settlement, and which make us think that probably the Ukrainians managed to capture. But one more time, we haven't received any data regarding the times, the data when this video was made, so it's very difficult to understand whether this video was made today or yesterday or probably a week ago or probably months ago. Very difficult to understand. The Russians from their side published at least 3 videos, probably to confirm their control over this bridgehead. The first video was of sniper position, sniper work in the southern part of the settlement. The second video was how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainians and positions inside of the forest, inside of the hill that located on the western part of Klishchiivka. As you can see, the Russians made significant attacks, very massive missile attack, very massive artillery strikes. So but from another side, it confirms that the Ukrainians are still there, that the Ukrainians are located on the hill, and that the Russians haven't managed to force them to step back. Probably we can make at least 2 conclusions of that. And another video was made from the northern fortifications from the hill 205. Another geolocated video how the Russians discovered the Ukrainian positions in trenches among the forest lines, and as a result of FPV drone strike, the Ukrainian soldiers had losses in this area. Anyway, we see that we need to try to filter the data that we get, that we receive either from the Russians or from the Ukrainian side regarding Klishchiivka. We see that some part of the settlement is in the gray zone, probably some part of the settlement is under Ukrainian control, and probably most of the settlement, up to 80%, is under Russian control. Now we're moving to the northern flank in direction of Yagidne. Today the Russian sources published the video of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles and Russian vehicles. For example, 77th Brigade published the video how they destroyed Russian tank in the vicinity of Yagidne as a result of artillery strike, and the Russians from their side published the series of video of destroyed armored vehicles somewhere along the railways that goes in direction of Yagidne. Significant number of destroyed armored vehicles, tanks CV-90, Bradleys, T-64, T-72 tanks of Ukrainian forces. Currently, it's very difficult to understand whether this video was made today or this is like old armored vehicles that were destroyed during the last Ukrainian attempts, previous Ukrainian attempts to attack in this direction. Anyway, it doesn't matter when this video was made. Anyway, the only thing what matters is that Ukrainians stopped any attempt to attack in direction of Berkhovka-Yagidne due to the heaviest losses that they got during the previous days. Also, the Russians published the video how they were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions on the north of Sporne. I have already updated the map because this territory used to be under Russian control. During the previous offensive operation in this area, the Russians managed to capture this forest, but as I understand, the Ukrainians managed to counterattack and to return control over the northern part of Sporne, and after that the Russians started bombing and shelling the Ukrainian trenches in this area. When talking about Liman area, Tarskoye salient, we haven't received any updates from this bridgehead, just the regular numbers from the Ministry of Defense regarding the Ukrainian losses and so on. That the Russians managed to repel at least 3 attacks in direction of Dibrova. The Ukrainians from their side published at least 1 geolocated video how they were attacking, bombing and shelling the Russian infantry that were moving along the forest lines with the FPV drones. We see some graveyard of Russian armored vehicles. At some point the Russian soldiers started withdrawing their positions. Anyway, the front line in this area in the combat line in this area is static. Even nevertheless, and that the Ukrainians have redeployed their Azov brigade in this area, and we expected some intensifying of action, but basically we don't see anything, just a static front line. When talking about the Kupiansk front line, the Russians reported about continuous offensive operation, that they're continue pushing, taking the fields and checkpoints and strongholds among the fields and so on. Also, the Russians reported that during the previous night, the Ukrainians launched at least 11 counter-offensive operations in the vicinity of Sinkovka. The Ukrainians were trying to counterattack in the vicinity of Novoselovska. The Ukrainians were counterattacking in direction of Novoyegorovka. This is the bridgehead on the Karamzinovka. This is the area in the territory in the vicinity of Karamzinovka bridgehead. All those attacks were repelled, and the Ukrainians lost 120 soldiers. The level of losses is very heavy. But one more time, we haven't received any video or photo confirmation of any results of those attacks or something like this. So it's up to you to believe or not these numbers. And we will finish these front lines not with the Kherson. There was another important topic. When talking about Kherson area, the Russians continue ruining and attacking the Ukrainian positions along between the islands. On this video we see how the Russians manage, probably not even to discover, it's like routine job to destroy every single building, every single area that the Ukrainians can use for their positions. On this video we see how the Russians using the Su-34 attacked and destroyed possible Ukrainian position with a missile. And also there was another Lancet strike, and as a result of that Lancet strike, the Ukrainians lost another M777 howitzer. And this is very important because from two point of views. The first one is that according to information we have today, the Russian sources have already published geolocated 600 Lancet strikes since the beginning of the special military operation. Successful. Of course, there were more strikes with Lancet, but at least for now we have 600 geolocated and confirmed cases of usage of Lancet against the Ukrainian armored vehicles since the beginning of the special military operation. So that means that 600 armored vehicles probably were damaged or destroyed. Very interesting update we got from the Black Sea. It's up to you to believe or not. I'm warning you that this might be complete speculation from the Ukrainian side. Complete, so I'm just warning you at the beginning, but we need to discuss because very reliable source from Ukrainian Asint channel published this information, and they're saying that the Ukrainians managed to complete successfully another reconnaissance operation in the vicinity of the western part of Crimea. To be more precise, the Ukrainians managed to enter the Russian military base in the vicinity of Yevpatoria, and during the night they entered the Russian barracks, and as a result of special operation managed to kill up to 14 Russian soldiers in the Russian barracks in the vicinity of the settlement. After that we got update that the Russians made massive bombings of Snake Island, and probably the Ukrainians reconnaissance team used that island for that operation. One more time, it's up to you to believe or not. I'm just repeating the update. I think that this might be speculation because it was just a message, but if that operation had place, then probably sooner or later the Ukrainians would publish more details because it's like a very significant victory according to the Ukrainians. So but for now it's just a message in another Asint Ukrainian Telegram channel. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.